Welcome everybody to this very special edition of Trowel Time. Today we're going to be talking with our new Most Worshipful Grand Master, Larry Judson, and our new Worshipful Grand Marshal, Craig Lurky. And as always, we've got Ben behind the camera. That's when you applaud for yourself, you'll know the audience is thin. So, but it's great to do this. It's kind of a tradition now. You're the second. We started last year. Well, I guess we started 2 years ago with Larry in show, and we did this last year with Leonard, and now you're up on Trowel Time with us, and it's just a pleasure to have both of you here. So thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time.
Good to be here.
Yeah, I know you.
Wonderful to be here.
You had a little bit of a diversion this afternoon before you came here. You got the opportunity to present a 70-year award.
We did. We went down to the home and was able to present a 70-year pin. And Worshipful Brother Bill was so excited, he was in tears, to have the Grandmaster there presenting it to him. But truly it was my honor to present a 70-year pin to one of our brothers who's been there for us for 70 years.
Yeah.
What a guy. And we actually were able to talk a little bit about his hometown and mine, which were very close together. Yeah. So I didn't know quite all the older people he knew, but I knew their children.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think that it's always, even today as I, I'm kind of gaining on everybody, but he's been a Mason 6 years longer than I've been alive. Mm-hmm. And that's me. So there's a lot of young guys out there that are they have a lot more years between them and him. But that's the great part of being in the fraternity.
When we left,
all these guys,
he said this was the happiest day of his life.
Wow. And
it hits you in the heart.
Yeah, it does.
Because to all of us, Masonry begins in our heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if those things don't hit you in the heart, there's something wrong with you.
I don't think anything.
To have a brother Mason just say, Most Worshipful Grand Master, this is the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Well, that's when the tear rolled down my eye. Because I am me, and I have just been there to help to facilitate and bring him his 70-year pin. And I was so pleased to be able to do that today.
That's great. Well, good. I'm glad you were able to do that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you come from? Where's home? I know where home is, but the audience doesn't. So talk with our audience a little bit about where you come from, what you did, and how you ended up with us as Grandmaster.
Okay, I'm Larry Judson. Grew up in a small town in Michigan, right between Flint and Lansing, Gaines, Michigan.
Now, Gaines is a big town.
Oh, yeah, we have a bar and we have a post office.
That's right, a bar and a post office. So.
But when I was growing up, there was 2 grocery stores, a hotel, a post office, 2 gas stations. Yeah. It was much bigger, and an elevator, which all of the small towns in Michigan had an elevator. Yeah. And I do remember being 9 years old and having my father say, Larry, go get the pickup truck, drive down and pick up chicken feed. At 9 years old. Yeah. We had 1,500 sheep, 500 pigs, 300 chickens, and a few scattered other animals. Dad never liked horses because Dad said horses did not bring in any money to the farm.
Right, they just cost.
Just cost money.
Yep.
And so I grew up on this farm, lived in a small community, and it was a wonderful life. But we did not get a lot of vacation time. So my dad did build a big cement pool so that when we were in the hay mow, you could go up there, drop the hay down, run down, and hop in this pool. When I say a pool, this one was about 25 feet wide, 40 foot long, and 14 feet deep.
Yes.
And we filled it from the well. And if you've ever jumped into a pool with well water, you're jumping in with degrees. Just above freezing.
Refreshing.
But grew up in this small town, went to school in Byron.
Yeah.
Did my degree work at Michigan State University and got my bachelor's there and did receive a master's there in administration. And then, unfortunately, in 1999, my first wife, Gaynell, passed away of cancer. And we had 2 children together, Chris and Lisa. And the good Lord then, about 3 years later, brought Mary into my life. And she's just a wonderful person.
You bet.
And when I decided to join the Grand Line, that was one of the most important things, was I talked with Mary and I said, we're either going to do this together or I'm not going to do it. And she said it was fine with her. And she's been like a fish in water. That girl, let me tell you a quick little story. I was down in Milford going to their lodge. Sometimes when you get into the Grand Line, you put on your gold collar, you put on your gold apron, and you have to watch out that it doesn't go to your head. And so I went to Milford Lodge. They were opening at 7:30. At 7:29, I signed my name and moved over into the doorway to go into the lodge. And when I got into the doorway, there was 6 guys that said, "Right Worshipful, we're glad to see you. Where's Mary?" I've thanked them ever since, because, and I think of that often, they bring me back to earth. They let me know I'm on the level with everybody, and that Mary and I went in this together. And she travels all over this state with me. She does, yes. And all the lodges know Mary because she goes in. And if we're in a meeting at times, Mary will be in the back cleaning up their kitchen, doing all the dishes. We were up at Pelston one time. We did our lodge. We came out of lodge. Every flower bed had been weeded while we had our meeting. Mary is not one that will sit around. But my gosh, what a blessing she is.
You bet.
That the good Lord brought her into my life and we traveled together. And I got into Masonry in kind of a unique way. I visited a little grocery store in Byron, Michigan. And I was having a Coke with one of the fathers of 2 of the kids that I have in school. And he looked at me and he says, "Why are you not a Mason?" And I said, "Well, Don, I guess I never knew how to become a Mason. I would like to be one," and those were the fatal words. Soon as I said I'd like to be one, he said, "Stay right there." And he walked across the street, picked up a petition, and that day I signed a petition to join Masonry. The really sad part to me, and something I really want to work on this year as a Grand Master, was I went to school in Byron. I taught school in Byron for 30 years. I did not know that building on the corner was a Masonic lodge. And I didn't know who was members there. When I joined, I found out that half the teachers that I taught with were Masons there. And I think that's one of the things we're missing. We need to start looking. There are a lot of good men in our community. And we need to start saying, let's at least let them know that we're here. Masonic awareness is a great thing. And if you ever get a chance, go to Elsie, Michigan. Elsie added in a mural on their wall of their Masonic lodge that is gorgeous. Shows masonry, shows the pillars. They took it a step further this year. They bought the building across and made it across Kitty Corner and made it into a Masonic center. This past weekend, they allowed the people in the village to come in and paint the mural on the wall for the center. And of course, it's in Elsie, Michigan. Got a couple of cows on there.
Got a few cows.
Elsie's got to have a few
Gotta have
cows
a few
there.
cows, yep.
But I think people in Elsie now know where that is.
Well, I think so.
And so it's been a great thing. I was just thinking about how I wish I'd have known earlier what that building on the corner was, because I didn't join Masonry until the year 2000. Almost when I was done teaching. I retired in 2002. And so much more could have been done. But for me personally, we always say in Masonry, we seek more or further light. I didn't know that. And I believe I could have probably received a lot more knowledge about Masonry had I been able to join just a little earlier. And so that's been an excellent thing for me as a Mason and as a man, to be able to see what's happening in that small town. In the year 2011, I became the master of the lodge. And that year, I happened to be reading through some of our Masonic Service Association materials. And they had a national award. And that award was called the Mark Twain National Masonic Awareness Award. And as I read through it, I could see that my little lodge in Byron was failing. When I took over as master, we held our first meeting in the hallway. We didn't even go to the lodge room. And as the new master, I said, guys, we're either going to get busy or let's just shut the door. I was glad that the guy stepped up to the plate. And one of the most important lessons I learned, sometimes Masons don't do things because they're not asked. Masons join to help. And we will say, we're having a dinner, and we say, well, we need a couple of Masons to help. But we don't ask them. If we ask them, they certainly will come to our aid. All you gotta do is say, hey, I need a couple of hours of your time. And they are there, and they are willing to help. We did very well with the award. We won it a couple of times. Byron Lodge has moved very well. And I'm very proud of what we've done because Byron Lodge is embedded in the community. When we became embedded in the community, I talked to the other Masons and I said, you know what? We're here. People know where our lodge is. They want to be a part of it. But more than that, they will come and they will ask for help. We're either going to provide the help or that cliff falls real quick. Don't turn people down who come in and they say, we need some help. Figure out a way. There's always a way for Masons to come forward and help. One of the biggest things was Bob Conley and the Grand Lodge of Michigan. I learned as a master that if I needed something, make that call. Tell them up here, what is the problem? What does your lodge need? What are you working on? And you'll get some very good advice. And those people giving the advice want Masonry to succeed. And so do I. And so in the coming year, I'm going to ask each of you to dig deep in your heart and say, what can I do for Masonry? Last night I visited Everett Lodge. By the way, I'm a traveling man. I can tell you that. Last year, a little over 100,000 miles on my pickup truck going to lodges. But Everett Lodge was an excellent lodge. They're getting embedded in their community. And even they said, Grand Master, what can we do to get some new people? Well, I had given each of them my pin, my wife's pin, And also my card, my business card. And I told those brothers, if you feel uncomfortable asking or answering questions about Masonry, please give my card to the person you think is interested and say, here, call the Grand Master. He'll answer your questions about Masonry. We have got to get that awareness out there. We have 2 lodges, one of them here in Alma and one in Byron, that now have printed up cards, business cards for their lodge. And a Mason can actually go in the community, hand a business card out, and it has a number of somebody in charge of membership that can get questions answered for them. You're not asking them to be a Mason. You're saying, if you have a question, we'll answer it for you. Because our biggest enemy in the whole thing, I think, is the misconceptions there are about Masonry. But I can tell you from the experience of Byron Lodge and others, if you get past that, your lodge is going to have some wonderful experiences in the community and in the lodge room. Please never forget the fellowship part. Sometimes we get so tied up that we need to raise money. We need to give money away. We got to get more things coming in so we can give it out to more groups. One of the greatest things that Grand Lodge has done, in my opinion, is we now put the lodge charity account out there with $2,400 for you to have your community know that you are there and you are there to help. But the worst thing we can do is give it all away in one lump sum. You have a lot of people in your community who need help. Find that baseball team, find that softball team, find that community food bank, find a church that's running and needs a little bit of a boost. And that's what that lodge charity account can do. But when you give that, as past Grandmaster Leonard Davis said, put on your apron, put on your collar, and present the check to them in your lodge so that they come and they can say, oh yes, I know where the Masonic Hall is. One of our worst things that we can do is just get a check and mail it out. Don't do that. Get out there and know the people in your community. Give those checks out. And I'm going to tell you, the rewards for your lodge are going to be so huge.
And with that, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for the latest Masonic apparel, materials, and literature from the craft? Look no more. At MichiganMasonicStore.com, you can find everything from hats and shirts to tumblers, blankets, and books. Our shirts come in a range of sizes and with logos and branding custom stitched for the Michigan Masons. Don't wait. Visit MichiganMasonicStore.com now.
And welcome back. So it's been a pleasure. Grandmaster's been talking with us about how he came to Freemasonry, a little bit about his background. Craig, so where are you from? Where'd you start out life? I know that you had an exciting one, and now you're you're a Youper. You know, we're all kind of, you know, if we're not from the UP, we're, you know.
We want to be in the UP.
That's right. So, who are you, and what are you doing now?
All right. Craig Lurky. I was born and raised in Grand Rapids. My dad was a Mason. Grand River 34 when he was master in '67.
Yeah.
It's now Grand Rapids 34. Good bunch of guys.
You bet.
I love visiting there. And went to school, went to CMU, graduated there.
What
Earth Science and Geology.
Earth Science and Geology, excellent,
Yep.
yeah.
And all I needed was a bachelor's degree to become an officer in the Navy, so I got my degree and I got my wife and I got myself in the Navy.
Yeah.
So it was a good time at CMU. Went in the Navy, went through flight school, became a pilot, and flew helicopters. And after Desert Shield, Desert Storm, there was a huge drawdown in manpower.
Yeah.
So I left active duty and stayed in the reserves,
Mm-hmm.
but left active duty and became a school teacher and principal.
So we've got two school teachers in
Yeah.
the room here.
Both ends of the
Yeah,
spectrum.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
taught geography at Delta College in Bay City for a couple years, and then I kind of morphed into to high school and then into elementary, and ended up as an elementary principal. So it was good. But during the reserve time, I did a lot of stuff as military police. I was on the Navy rifle team or marksmanship team, so I competed internationally with the rifle team for 5 years.
Wonderful.
And somehow after 9/11, things got really busy and very tough being a school principal when you're gone every other year. So,
Sure.
So I just retired from from education and stayed on active duty. It's overseas a year, home a year, and did that until 2013. My last tour of duty was probably my favorite. It was a 1-year tour in Africa. I was extended 4 times, so it was a 2-year tour in Africa. But I was working with foreign nationals, the African nations, their militaries, and I led a training team all over, for anything from first aid to military leadership, small boat operations, everything, civil affairs, and basically helping the African nations become a little bit more active in the counter-piracy thing with the Somalis. Looking back, I was thinking about this the other day, is probably one of the most Masonic things you could do, because I was a representative from one of the richest countries in the world, and I was working hand in hand with memberships of the nations of some of the poorest in the world.
Here.
And it didn't matter. We were on equal terms.
Yeah.
They were my brothers.
Yeah.
And somehow along the line, I decided that I needed to be a Mason. I'm 4th generation. My father, my grandfathers were both Masons. And I had dropped a petition with Huron Verona Lodge and Bad Axe before I went to Africa, and immediately after signing the petition was sent overseas. And 2 years later I came home, and the secretary of the lodge came up and says, "Do you still want to be a Mason?" I says, "Yes, sir." And I was initiated a month and a half later. So instead of laying over 30 days, it laid over close to 700. But but
Well, it gave him plenty of time to review the thing.
yeah, good review. And went through the degrees and jumped right into junior deacon. 6 months after I was raised, I was doing working tools through the chairs. My year in the East was wonderful, and that was the first year I was in the UP. I'd retired from everything, moved to the UP, but I had earned that chair in the East, so I commuted 400 miles to Lodge twice a month for a year. And so if you want to be there, you're there.
You're there.
And became the DDI up in the UP
And now
RGL,
and now you have integrated yourselves into the St. Ignace life, and for fun and pleasure, you
pleasure.
do
It's
the
UP,
boat
bro.
tours and
Yeah.
take people underneath the big bridge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's also currently captain taking people through the Sulaks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
excellent.
I've got my charter boat with my sailboat, which I do under the bridge out of St.
Yeah,
Ignace. But I got a phone call this winter asking me to be a captain of the Sulaks boat tours, so I take tourists through the Sulaks.
Wonderful.
It's great.
Yeah, we did that. Joe Neal and I have done that many times,
Well,
but it's always fun.
on my captain's shirt, there's a square and compass on the pocket, and I just keep waiting for brothers to come through there.
Well,
so.
a great lodge up in the Sioux. I know you know that.
Yep.
But certainly
Honorary member there.
a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, excellent. That's great.
Yep.
That's great. Listen, when times get, you're both busy. You do a lot of stuff, and I know that that sometimes being a Grand Lodge officer, certainly Grand Master isn't necessarily easy, right? How do you stay motivated? What kind of keeps you going? What do you do to kind of, fill your tank back up and keep going?
I use my 3-in-1 method.
Okay, which is?
My 3-in-1 method is this. I can always find, and we can all find, something that needs to be fixed or that may bring us down a little bit. But if we do that, and I've been talking to lodges about it, tell me something that might be wrong or that needs something done. But before I leave, I want you to tell me 3 good things that are going on in this lodge. Mm-hmm. And that motivates me because I don't leave 10 lodges in a row on a negative note. I leave 10 lodges in a row with positive things that they're doing in their community and helping out. When I was teaching, I had the same rule. If I had to send a note home, say that a guy named Ben in my class was having problems, I would send...
Guys named Ben often do have a lot of issues.
I would send a note to Ben's parents.
Yes. I'm sure his parents got a lot of notes.
But before I'd finish that day, I would find 3 other students who were doing those things that made things better for the other students. And I would send a happy letter to each one of them. And I got known in the community as the teacher that had more happy notes on the refrigerators than any other teacher. But I was also one, and I would like to think, that was dearly loved because kids came to class, and when they came to class, they knew that they was going to leave that day with something positive. Currently, I am the Grand Master who's known as giving ties away. I gave one away this last night. Mm-hmm. And what that is, I had a teacher, professor, my first wife, Ganelle, had him. Actually, I didn't have him, but he said, and his name was Hugo Pinty, and Hugo said, you're not going to teach somebody 4 times 3 and have them remember you were the teacher that taught them 4 times 3. You need to do something that will create a memory. And so when I was teaching, I thought of that, and I bought an electric fry pan. And any time a student had a birthday, I would bring in a cake mix, the eggs, and all the stuff needed. And that student got to mix it all up, dump it in that electric fry pan, cook it, hand it out in class, and take extra pieces to the gym teacher, principal, or somebody else who they felt special about. When I became a Mason, Mike Cole, a former student of mine, was master of the lodge. And the first thing that Mike did when I walked around, he said, Mr. Judson, I remember making a birthday cake in your room.
That's correct.
He didn't remember that I taught him 4 times 3.
Right.
But create a good memory. I've had, when I've taken my tie off and put it on a Mason, I've had everything from smiles to, I had one over in Lapeer, and the tears ran down his face because his father had passed away a month before. And he just was so taken that we created a memory. So when you're out there this year, do the 3-in-1 rule. Leave with something positive every time you have a meeting.
Absolutely.
If you guys leave with positive notes, we're going to move this lodge and this Grand Lodge like you would never believe was possible.
Good answer. Craig, how about you? How do you stay motivated and keep going? Yeah.
My motivation comes from a lesson from my father. My dad visited Masons. I learned from that example that he went out and he visited people, and one of them I remember was an old Mason, the name of Ralph Murray. He passed away some time ago. I was a freshman in college. But Dad always went to visit Ralph every other week. And every other week, Dad sat in the house, smoked cigars, and drank fine bourbon, and I shoveled snow and mowed grass.
That's exactly right.
But
That's what you're for.
But
Yes.
you learned that commitment to helping your brother and serving others was what stuck, and that guided me into the military, and it brought me back to the Masonry when I retired from the military. And serving in my lodge is what motivates me. Serving the community, doing something that makes a difference locally. And in this past year, I traveled to lodges when I was campaigning for the marshal's position. And I found out that visiting the lodges gave me so much more energy. It motivated me to walk into a lodge. You're only a stranger for 5 seconds.
Right.
And then you are a brother. You are best friends with everybody in that lodge. And we energize each other. And I think that's probably the biggest secret in Masonry that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
Is the fact that we have brothers across the state, around the world. And if you're feeling down, visit a lodge.
You bet.
Because there's brothers out there that'll charge your batteries. They'll lift you up. They'll give you a shoulder to cry on, or a kick in the pants, or whatever it takes. And that's what brothers do, right?
They might.
They might.
They might even give you
some
a
good
glass
counsel.
of really nice bourbon and maybe a cigar.
There you go.
Yeah.
And good counsel is always there. And just being out there and being part of the lodges and the community as a whole,
great.
That's what motivates me. And service to others. And that's why I'm here. That's why I chose to run for Grand Lodges. As I always said, I serve the craft. You are the craft. What do you need?
Yeah. It's been a pleasure having you both here. We're going to wrap this up. Craig, some final thoughts from you. Where do you see the fraternity going? Where do you see you're going to be Grand Master in 2030?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I
So
haven't done the math.
what do you
30.
think? Well,
Would be
it's
30,
7
yeah.
years down. Yeah, so
Yeah,
2030.
Wow. That's not too
what-
far away.
Well, it's far enough. No, and as I'm looking at it, it isn't that far, is it, Larry? What do you see as the future of the fraternity? Where do you see this going? What are your hopes about the future? And just let us know a little bit about that.
I guess it starts off with, and I think Larry and I share the same goal, is, 60 years ago was our high water mark of about a little over 200,000 Masons. And today we're holding steady at about 25. It's time to turn that around and start adding to our numbers. And I think that's the future of Masonry, is the world has turned to I won't say a dark place, but it's not as uplifting and supportive as it used to be, and what it could be. And I think men need what we have, what we offer, and that brotherhood, that fellowship, and the supporting of each other. And that's kind of hard to find sometimes in the real world. And it's just part of who we are. And if we capitalize on that thought process, then good men will find us, and we will continue to grow, and then the future's bright.
Good.
So,
I agree. Grandmaster, kind of your thoughts of the year and your final.
My thoughts are we're going to have a very positive year.
Good.
And I've challenged the craft to get out there, to get some good men in. And I want to be the first Grand Master in 40, 50 years who shows a positive increase in the number of Masons in Michigan. And one of the things that I want to do is at the next Grand Lodge session, I want to read off the names of every lodge that has a positive growth in Masonry. So if your lodge has one person pass away and you get 2 people to join your lodge, now you've got a positive growth. In Indiana, they read off the names of every lodge that had a positive growth that year, including a lodge that had 21 new Masons that was the most of any lodge in Indiana.
wow.
And we need to start highlighting the positive growth. And I can see it happening. I'm seeing more degree work than I have seen since I was a master back in 2011. Our lodges are doing that. And Grand Lodge will help out. Look, in October, we're going to have an any degree day again. And we'll help out. And if your lodge needs help with your degree work, get a hold of your regional grand lecturer or get a hold of the grand lecturer. But if they won't do it, get a hold of the grandmaster. I'll make sure and find some people to help you.
Very good.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you, it's 64 years ago since we had positive growth.
Yeah.
64 years, 1959, and there's a reason I know that, because it was the year that I was born. So I've been working at this for a long time. We finally, I think we've got to a stabilized point. But yeah, now is when we turn the corner.
Yeah.
And yes, the world needs what Freemasonry has to offer. I think it would be an awful lot better place if more men were Freemasons than if they're not. So
Absolutely.
absolutely agree with both of you on that. Hey, it's been a pleasure. I know both of you very well, and I'm glad to have you here with Trowel Time. I remember I was on the MSA committee that chose Byron Lodge as receiving the Mark Twain Award back years ago, and it was a surprise to see that because all of it was blind. Those responses were all blinded, and we all said to a man, "This is the lodge," and there it was. It was Byron Lodge, and I didn't know Byron Lodge at that time. That was when I was just out of the Grand East. But
I remember, Bob, after winning the award, coming to you as master and saying, "Bob, we have our lodge moving. Is there any problem keeping our line in order for another year to get us that next step?"
Yep.
And I remember you telling me, "Larry, if you guys have that lodge moving like that, there is no reason to stop that momentum." And in the next year, in 2012, we won our second Mark
That's right.
Twain Award,
That's right.
which only 4 lodges in the country had ever done.
Right. Yeah. And
And-
that's out of
Out of
tens of thousands of
10,000
lodges.
yeah.
That only 4 had ever done that. Yeah.
But it was, I remember talking to you and saying, if we are moving, can we keep going?
Yeah, for God's sakes, if leadership is
And-
good, man, go.
And-
Go.
and
Don't
that
stop
was
now.
it.
Yeah. It's exciting having you guys here. It's exciting to have you as Grandmaster Larry. I wish you continued health and prosperity and good things for the fraternity. Craig, I hope that your journey is exciting and as fulfilling for you as ours has been for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. You come back on Trowel Time anytime you want. We're glad to have you. We'd love to have you. Thank you, Ben, for everything that you do. And go to Lodge, everybody. We'll see you soon somewhere down the road. Bye-bye.